a Florida Writer podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. And today I am lucky enough to be with Kathryn Montbriand. Kathryn, could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Absolutely. So I am kind of a late in life writer. I took a sabbatical a couple of years ago and came out realizing I was a writer after having written 2 books worth of content during my career break. And that has transpired into the writing I do today, which is largely leadership writing. I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn, content about how to grow as a professional, content about being a generalist, all sorts of things like that, as well as my latest project, which is a book that I have started to write over the summer and will be working on over the course of the year.
You are a content writer for LinkedIn, is that correct?
Yes, that is one of the things that I do.
So how does that work? I hop on LinkedIn, I poke around, I see things, but I don't know how the back end of LinkedIn works. So can you give us a little insight?
I can. So one of the things that I've learned about writing on LinkedIn is lots of people are on the platform, but about 99% of them aren't publishing any content outside of the, I got a new job, I got promoted, let's celebrate for a minute type of things. So it's actually just this sliver of people, which blows my mind because you see so much content on the platform, but it's coming from this very narrow group of people. So what they've done on LinkedIn is you can do really a lot of different things with content. It's one of the platforms that's been around for the longest time when you think about social media, but it's kind of been this professional kind of stalwart thing. It hasn't been, as flashy as some of the others. But over the years, they've introduced your ability to post your job update. Of course, that's, I think, where it started. But now people are putting out how-to guides and listicles and videos and carousels of content. And it's really, it's a mix. It's a mix of thought leadership. You'll see a lot of people publishing things like, let me help you understand something better. It's some personal updates, it's some leadership stories. So it's really a blend of different types and formats of content and different outcomes that people are looking for. And then, of course, there's a bunch of it that's very salesy and, here's my thing, buy my thing. But that's a given with any of these platforms. You'll see people trying to market on them.
I think that LinkedIn is such an undiscovered platform for writers. And I like that you're writing and you're one of the thought leaders there because you start to understand it, you know how to engage with it. But if you're someone you don't have a business background, let's suppose you're a high school teacher and you've written a mystery series, how could somebody like that get traction on LinkedIn?
Okay, so someone who doesn't have a business background, but wants to share content and engage on the platform.
Correct.
One of my favorite things about the platform is it's a really positive environment because everyone has to show up as their true self. There's no anonymous version of a LinkedIn profile. At least I haven't encountered any. So people tend to be generous, and also you don't run into a lot of trolls or people who are going to try to tear your work down, which I think is great. So to start with, I would think through, same with any bigger piece of content that you're trying to fit into a smaller format. Think about what the connection might be to a professional context, right? If there are little lessons that come out of the book, you could do, a short little excerpt. If there are character growth things that happen you could talk about as a manager, as a teacher. I'm sure there are plenty of great examples of this. Watching humans grow and learn things and the different ways that you help them do that. So it's not about, put the whole book out there and get people to engage with it that way. I would say it's kind of about dissecting it, making it really digestible, probably adding in some visuals, whether they're from the book or, let me make a cool little chart in Canva that shows, from this to this, what were the strategies that were employed in the book. But there's this sweet spot of you have to have some professional time because it is a professional platform. But there's also this yearning for humanness. And I think I'm seeing this more and more as it becomes easier to generate generic content, right? You can put it in an AI machine and get all sorts of things written for you. But it doesn't have that, here's a human facing a struggle, here's a human facing growth, here's a lived experience. And I find that people really gravitate towards something that feels authentic and human and real and has that connection to the so what of how do I use this in a professional context. So a book author could pull all of that out from their piece of fiction, add in a layer of their own humanness, which we all have, right? Especially as a teacher, and package it in a way that I think would be really, really fun for that platform.
I find that a lot of writers forget that they're entrepreneurs, and that alone is a profession. And, if you want to put it in a box, but that's the goal, right? Is so you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking on your feet, you're learning to do it on your own. You might build a small team around you, but you're really in self promotion. And these are some great ideas. I do like the idea of blending that sort of the lessons learned, and you can blend your professional life, like teaching and the strategies to manage a classroom compared to the strategies to manage your writing project, compared to the strategies for marketing your project, right? So you have all these different things and you really could layer them. And I never thought about how that could really be an interest to some people.
Absolutely.
So what other advice do you have for, best practices?
Yes. So I don't follow all of the conventional advice that you'll see out there. And there are a lot of people giving advice about LinkedIn, things like post every day, follow X and Y format because the algorithm likes them best. So there's all that type of advice out there. I'm not going to give it today because as a writer myself, it has to feel good and authentic. And when I think about implementing some of those strategies, they just don't feel like they're good and authentic to me. So what I would give as advice is, number one, do it because we need more voices on the platform. If you're in the 99%, I know it takes a lot of courage to put things out there, especially under your professional banner, but there's also a lot of opportunity and reward on the other side. So do it. Try to manage the fear and get past that. And then from a kind of content and structure perspective, I would say set some goal for yourself, whether that's I want to post something once a week, I want to post twice a week, like have a schedule in mind and then work back from that to keep yourself on track. I say that because nothing feels worse than feeling like you're constantly behind on a project that you signed yourself up for. So that helps you feel like you're at least, giving yourself that fair shot of being able to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. And then the third thing is have some goal. So think about why you want to be out talking to people on the internet. Do you want to educate people? Do you want to build your network? Do you want to explore your own way of thinking about things and kind of sharpen if you're thinking about it from a thought leader perspective, sharpen your own frameworks and structures? And for me, that's been a big one, is that when you're forced to put it down on a page and create a visual, your own thinking about something gets much, much clearer. So think about why you want to do it, and then use that as kind of your guidepost and say, are the things I'm producing aligned to that? Do they still feel good? Because if you're writing about things that feel like a chore, you're probably not going to stick with it. And then use your calendar and your goals and just kind of evolve from there. I usually tell people who are just starting that it takes about 3 months to find your voice, to find the structures that work for you, because there are a bunch of different options that you can choose for how you do your content, and to start to find an audience. I haven't seen too many viral overnight type things happening on the platform. It's usually you start to publish, people kind of start to notice, you start to interact with people, and then it grows slowly over time. It's kind of one of those consistency games, like so many things are. And it takes about 3 months, I would say, to get all those wheels turning, and then it starts to go a little bit faster from there.
I know you said it's not necessary to post every day. So I've heard LinkedIn like once a week. Is there a number that's the best? So if you want to grow and gain that traction, is it best to post once or twice a week, or is there, should you use, well, I'll ask the next question later.
I would say once a week is a really good starting point. That way, most people aren't sitting on the platform every day. It's not like Instagram where you have it up on your phone all the time. Have people in your network, they're probably checking in once or twice a week. So if you post something, you'll show up on their feed, especially if they've interacted with your content before. Like I said, some people say do it every day, post something every single day. And that to me just feels like you end up with the same type of content in your feed all the time, every day. So I tend to do probably 2-ish times per week, 2 to maybe 3 if I have something like a request to my network that I want to send out. But get kind of consistent. And then the other thing that actually works from an algorithm perspective and to get more reach is post when your people who are in your network will be online and engaging with things, which tends to be in the weekdays in the mornings. Based on the research that they do and my own anecdata, this is what has worked best for me. I think people just tend to check it before they go to work. So they'll click on a few things that they like and then go off to the rest of their day. And part of what the algorithm looks for is early engagement, like many of these algorithms. So if you post something and people engage with it early, whether they like it or comment on it or share it with their network, that just helps you get more reach and find the people who might want to benefit from your content faster.
What is the difference between a newsletter and an article?
So I'll go even one step further. So there are posts on LinkedIn, there are articles on LinkedIn, and there are newsletters on LinkedIn. A post is kind of the most simple version, and that's what you'll see the most of, which can be text. It can be text plus a graphic. It can be a carousel with images that you scroll through. And those are kind of the whole post will typically show up in a feed. So it doesn't require another click to get to the full version of it. Those have a lot of limitations within how you can format it. They're very plain text. So you'll see people using creative things like emojis and arrows and dashes to format their posts, because none of the regular tools like headlines and bold and underline are available. But they do tend to have the least friction to get people to look at them. So, least options as a creative person, but probably most engagement from people. The next layer is article, which they can be longer. Also, posts, I think the limit is like 2,600 characters. It's pretty short. So an article is something that you host on the LinkedIn platform. You can use all the typical formatting tools that you would have on a blog that you host anywhere. And those, you publish them in a post, so people will see them in your post, but then they have to click on them to see the whole version of the article. So there's an extra step, which in my experience, I tend to lose people in that step for some reason. I'm not sure folks who on the platform have that same experience. That'll give you, like I said, a more standard blog feely type of interface that you can work with. And then a newsletter is something, I think they rolled this out in the last couple of years. You can basically host a newsletter on LinkedIn and invite your contacts to subscribe to your newsletter directly from the LinkedIn platform. And then when you publish it, it goes out and notifies the people within your network. And that's similar to another any newsletter that you would write elsewhere. The difference is, of course, if you're doing it within a platform, the platform kind of owns that email list in a way that's different from if you were hosting it on your own website or somewhere else. So again, easy to get people into it because you're able to ask them to subscribe right from the platform, which is great, but a little bit less control on what you do with it long term. So if you're looking to build an email list, you might want to consider those trade-offs when you're making your choices.
Wow. Kathryn, that is such fantastic advice. How can people learn more about you and what you've been up to?
Well, number one, I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. So Kathryn Montbriand, I publish a lot there, 2 to 3 times a week, and I'm always eager to engage with people on the platform. I'll also share updates about my book project within LinkedIn. And then the other way to connect with me is through my storytelling business, which is called Lived and Loved. And the website is livedandloved.co. And we help people tell their stories. I do a lot of work on career stories with people. And then we translate them into, you guessed it, their LinkedIn profiles and their LinkedIn content strategies and all of these things that add that depth and color to what someone is as a professional. So come over and say hi at livedandloved.co as well.
Well, that is fantastic. Are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
I am. Lay it on me.
Would you rather write with a pen or a pencil?
Pen.
You don't want to erase anything?
No, I have a whole bucket of pens next to me, and you should see my notes. They're full of scribbles instead of eraser marks.
Do you have a favorite early morning drink?
I do. And it is, so it says coffee on the mug, and it is coffee, but I also like to mix it with my protein drink to give it kind of this chocolatey mocha vibe. So coffee plus plant protein.
Wow, that sounds fun. And do you prefer to use a laptop or a PC?
Oh, laptop 100%. I think the last time I owned a PC was maybe 20 years ago. It has been a while. And as a person who travels a lot and lives in multiple places throughout the year, I don't even think I could transport a regular computer.
Well, Katie Montbriand, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. This has been just a delightful conversation, and let me leave with another push for anyone who's thinking about writing content on LinkedIn. Please do it. If you have questions about it, drop me a note. I am hugely supportive of getting more voices on the platform. So thank you for this conversation and for allowing me to share the word on LinkedIn.
You have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out. Boo! We're all done. Kathryn Montbriand is a former Fortune 500 leader who took a career sabbatical after 10 years at a large financial institution. During this reset, she discovered her love for writing. It became quite clear when she noticed the hundreds of pages of reflection and journaling she had accrued. She has a knack for making the complex simple and pulls that thread through all her creative work. Creating leadership content, helping people refine their career stories, even writing a book about the transition from corporate world to the next thing. One of her preferred places to write these days is on LinkedIn. Find her on LinkedIn at Kathryn Montbriand or at her website, KathrynMontbriand.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us at floridawriters.org. Until next time.